I have to go to the dentist and be like, so I tripped my tooth on a metal straw.
On a metal straw.
Trying to help some turtles.
See, I don't do straws all that much. I'm so happy with the way Starbucks gives you that, like the new coffee mug or coffee cup with the lip on it. Mm-hmm. I'm just like, that's fine with me.
No, I love a straw. My water bottle has a straw in it. Like, I'm a big baby.
The Camelback, like, you gotta chew it and suck on it at the same time?
No, it's just a
Are we
normal
recording?
straw.
Yeah, we're good. We're going. We're live right now.
All right, well, this is figuring it out.
Yeah,
We're figuring out how to save the turtles, save the world, and everything. So this is figuring out episode 2. Who knew we'd make it this far?
I know. I thought we would be a one-hit wonder.
My name is Joseph. This is my co-host, Linda, and we're here to just figure it out. We got Caleb on the 1s and 2s in the back.
Hey.
And he's got a mic. He's got a camera.
Yeah.
Everybody was like, who is this bodiless, voice from the distance? And this is him. This is Caleb.
Yeah, but look, my husband is your number one fan. Like his number one critique was get Caleb a mic and a camera.
It's for you. This is for you.
So he's going to be so excited about this if he even watches.
Well, there's hopes. There's hope. We got, I don't know how many total viewership, listeners, all it doesn't take but one, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't take but one.
Look, we were hyped when this came out.
The angels rejoice when even one.
I don't know if they're rejoicing over
listens
this.
to the podcast. That's accurate, right?
That's some translation.
That
could be, yeah. JSV.
The JSV.
The Joseph
That's what
Standard
it
version.
says.
Yeah.
Yep. So, Linda, we've got a full docket. I'm excited about what we're bringing today. I'm going to let you start with your slice. The slice of life that you wanted to bring over.
Y'all have been busting me on this.
So what we do, if you're sort of listening in and you're like, what? We're trying to bring some slices, some things that we thought were entertaining or interesting in life, just general things, just whatever. Doesn't matter. It's like, we've got your attention. We want to talk about what we want to talk about. Here we go. And then we'll get into some deeper stuff on another level in a minute. But Linda, go ahead and tell us what you brought today, because I'm excited about it. It's pretty funny.
Look, y'all been laughing at me about this since I brought it to you. But so how my brain works is something triggers something that hit, like the synapses just start firing. So mid-2000s playlist was bumping at the gym one day, and on comes Britney Spears. And I was like, Joseph, we got to talk about Free Britney. And you're like, no.
We don't. Do we have to talk about it? No, we don't.
No, we don't. But then that same day came out this article, like, breaking news, Britney Spears uses gas station restroom. And
now
I'm
that's
like,
big news.
Okay, the girl went into a gas station bathroom. But as we know, we've just gone through Free Britney.
Yep.
And she's been living under this conservatorship, but she was leaving the country for the first time, like as a free person this week. So that's what it's like. So it's big news that she goes to a gas station bathroom.
For real. But
then I found this article, her response to the gas station bathroom.
I haven't seen this. This is news to me.
So she said she may be free from the conservatorship, but she can't escape the paparazzi. So they talk about, she goes into a gas station bathroom and she says she had a bad day, took picture of her coming out of the bathroom. How embarrassing is that? But then she said she went home and had a party for confidence. Like
what does that mean?
She went home and put on her heels and a fancy dress and fixed her makeup and just danced it out.
Oh, like, okay. Just a private dance party.
When you're feeling down, just throw yourself a party for confidence.
Joseph, you remember that. Next time you're feeling down.
A party for confidence.
Like heels,
Dwight
dress,
in the stairwell.
Blasting music.
All right, so in the office, that's what Dwight does. Or in his car.
Yeah.
He'll roll up the windows and he'll just turn on the metal and just
just like
I know what that is about. I know what that's about.
So just even Britney Spears has to hype herself up.
Well, don't we all? Like, I have a playlist specifically for that on my iPod.
Yeah.
And I'm like probably the only person around here that still uses an iPod.
Truth.
That thing's holding on from when did I buy that thing? 2004, I think. It's holding on. It can't work outside of being directly plugged in, but it works. So I've got it's just a playlist, and this is all right. A transparent look into my life. It's called Beast Mode. Beast mode. All right. If I'm on the road and I'm heading to like a softball game, beast mode is cranked. Okay. So I get Britney there.
Yeah.
We should all find our way to like amp our own self-confidence, whatever that looks like. I think that's important because, you know, beyond Britney Spears and the whole persona that is her, she's dealing with some real issues. Hers are just super super public for one, but also just I don't know, they're just blown out of proportion because of her being the celebrity she is. Now, I don't know, does she still make music? Do we know? Has she put out any new music?
I think that's like part of it, right? Like something about the music and ownership of it, and she hadn't done something in a while.
That's part of it, yeah. But now that she's free, is she going to put out new music?
I don't know.
Well, you remember she was in Las Vegas and was like announcing a residency. And they had like this whole big, you probably don't remember this. They had this whole big thing, and she like comes out on stage, and they're expecting her to make this announcement, and she just walks down the red carpet and leaves.
Ah.
And then nothing happened. And it was weird. And then
so is Britney's freedom getting out of music, or is Britney's freedom like all right, so Taylor Swift did this. Okay, let's talk about T Swift real quick. She broke free of all the whatever she was being held back by, her publisher or whatever, her label, I don't know, but now she owns all of her own stuff. She's recreated, putting it all out again. And you know, at first I was like, this is a cash grab, but then she like rewrote a bunch of songs. I don't know, she made one that was 4 minutes, she made it 10 minutes. You know, there's this whole big thing.
Yeah, she broke the record over American Pie for longest song ever in the world.
I don't know how I feel about that.
I don't like
because
it.
American Pie is a classic.
I don't like it.
I had a class at Alabama. Speaking of, so we have to bring up like our Alabama knowledge apparently, because we did religion and genocide last week. But I had a class that we had a whole series of classes. It was a American history or something class on that song. I had a professor that literally wrote a book that on that song, and how that song was a recapitulation of certain eras of history and a retelling of the American story. So it's not just about a guy with a truck on the side of a lake. It is a whole big thing. But anyway, all that to say, Britney is allowed to use whatever potty she wants.
Yeah, like she's getting married. She's making her own decisions now.
Is she getting married?
She's getting married.
Man, you are a Britney encyclopedia.
Look, and growing up, I was not that big into Britney, but this whole thing has just been fascinating.
You weren't rolling around with "Oops, I Did It Again." All that.
I mean, too much, but it comes on the playlist, and I'm like, we have to talk about it.
Yeah, well,
I'm showing my millennial right now.
You know, I want to know. All right, so if she puts out new music, is it gonna be what Britney? Like, I just want to know. Like, is she free from music or free for new music? I don't know what she is. Or just free to like figure it out. Maybe she never even had that chance.
She's figuring it out.
She's figuring it out. So listen, Britney, we're here for you on this podcast. We're figuring it out just like anyone else.
She needs to come out and just talk about it. Just hop on. There's an open mic guest spot.
We have an you
can take Joseph's mic and just talk it out.
Like email.
I would fall out dead if I got to host this with Britney Spears one day.
I hope that happens. I
really
hope
it does too.
I've never thought I need to have a conversation with Britney Spears, but just because of how
you
hyped you would be, that's what I'm saying. I would just let you handle it.
You're going to be over there at Megadesk with Caleb.
I'll be at Megadesk
step
with
aside,
Caleb.
Gentlemen.
That's right.
On the ones and twos, hitting the buttons.
Girls' Day. What do you want to talk about, Joseph?
All right, so I have what I think is an incredibly interesting. All right, so forewarning. And I'm trying to send this over to Caleb real quick because there are pictures involved with this too, which there was with you. Like Britney using the potty. Apparently there's some pictures?
There's some
involved?
pictures.
Anyway.
Not of her using it, just
Not just like in and out of
Yeah.
it. So I'm trying to airdrop this to Caleb while I talk, but
There you go. You should be able to see it.
there's before we show anything, anytime there's a big, I'm a space guy, right? So I love that God called me to Madison, Alabama, because we're right in the middle of the rocket city, and that makes me excited. So anything, because I like space, always have. Anytime there's a big space discovery, anything like that, like I'm in, I'm listening. Especially if it has to do with something like, not like, hey, we found the X-ray of, a star 7,000 light years away. Like, that's okay. We find that stuff all the time. But when there's like this giant cigar-shaped meteor, but we don't know if it's a meteor. It could be a spaceship for all we know coming close to Earth. Like, we're going to check it out. It could be alien in origin, or it could just be a random thing in the universe. Like, I perk up. I'm like, what is it? Because here's the deal. Well, I'll wait on that.
okay.
The newest discovery that I love when we're all like scratching our heads. Like, what is this thing? Usually it turns out to be nothing, right? Usually you discover something in space. It's just because space is so big, things look weird. This is something interesting, okay? On the moon, China, everybody's been to the moon. Like, I bet, name a country they've been to the moon. Australia's probably been to the moon. But China has a couple of rovers. Like, we've got rovers on Mars. We've got a helicopter on Mars. Did you know this?
No.
We've got like a helicopter drone on Mars, like flying around. So, or maybe it hasn't landed yet. It's on the way if it hasn't landed. Anyway, on the moon, every country has something going on, but China has made a discovery. China has the rover. Hold on, I'll find a U-22 rover has rolled up on. It's about 260 feet away from something that it stopped and took pictures of and said, "This is weird." It's what they're labeling a mystery hut on the moon. A mystery hut. All right. Now, this mystery hut, do we have a picture of it, Caleb?
Airdrop it to me here.
All right. Hold on. So I'm going to get this over to Caleb. And we're going to show you if you're viewing this on YouTube or on the website or whatever.
That's the other computer over there.
So, wrong computer. I'm just going to send it to everything possible. All right.
People in the office are just going to start getting this picture.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Well,
what?
hey, it's interesting enough. So, all right, I think on your screen you'll be able to see it in just a second. There's this. It's a perfectly square, perfectly rectangular, or whatever. It's got sharp edges, sharp sides. It's linear, and it looks like a big rectangular. Like, they're calling it a hut. No one knows what this is. And these kind of things don't exist in nature usually. You don't expect to see something with perpendicular sides, all squared out, rectangular. They've just discovered this. And I guess their rover is going to start easing towards it. I really don't know.
They don't want to just roll up on it.
I guess you don't just roll up on a random object on the moon. Like, I feel like the Transformers, if you've ever seen Transformers Dark Side of the Moon, like, they already told us there's nothing good on the dark side of the moon. It's bad place over there. So that's where we're at. Any ideas on what this mystery hut might be, Linda?
I mean, is it on the soundstage that they filmed the moon landing on? Like,
Did we even really ever go to the moon, really?
Like, is
Okay.
this just China's soundstage that they're like, oh man, somebody left their Amazon box
Somebody ordered Amazon to the moon.
to the moon? Yeah, like, or, I mean, maybe I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist.
So, all right, that's where I'm going with this.
Like, is this China, like, drumming up something for themselves?
Now,
Is this actually on the moon? Like, or is China just not getting attention right now? And they're like, you know what we're going to do?
China's gotten a lot of attention over the past couple of years.
Well,
you know.
negative attention. Maybe they're like, space hut. Everybody loves a space hut.
Everybody loves a space hut. All right.
What do you
Caleb,
think?
any thoughts? Like,
No, man, I'm still thinking about it because, like, I don't know. I'm generally one of those, like, if you don't have the evidence for it, there's no way. So aliens have kind of been this weird thing for me. Like, I know that certain people are really into it, but I'm like, I've never seen it myself. It hasn't been proven to me. So
here's the deal.
I don't know.
Let me tell you about science, Caleb. Are you ready? All
Yeah,
right.
tell me.
I don't know. You're an engineer. I don't know how much science is involved in engineering.
I don't know. I don't think any.
But in theoretical science, science can only prove a positive. It can never prove a negative. Okay? So as far as alien life, right? Extraterrestrial life, we can only prove it does exist if we ever find proof of our evidence that it does. We can never prove that it doesn't exist. So that's how theoretical science works. Science, baby.
Science.
So here's the deal. There are so many little blips that we find. Like, I'm just like, there's got to be something out there, right? There's got to be. I don't know. I'm full on bought into the alien thing. I really am.
Ooh,
I'm
okay.
full on, like, something's out there. Whether or not it is intelligent, right? Whether or not it is something that could find us, I don't know. I don't know any of that. This may not be anything like that. Probably not.
This may be a rock.
But I believe that our God is big enough and creative enough and powerful enough to anything that he decided he wanted to put out there could be out there. And we don't know his ways.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
So where I'm going with this, and I have a whole theology of space, right?
Theology of aliens.
I really do. All right. Somewhere in the world, somewhere on the internet sphere, I have an article floating around on the theology of space travel. Just putting it out there.
Oh, somebody find that.
Somebody
find
find
that.
it.
Link it to us. Send it to us.
Said,
We'll throw it up on
I
number
smell
3.
a sermon series.
It very well could be. All right. And in this town, it would pull people from everywhere. But here's what I'm trying to go with this. All right, aliens, yes or no, Linda?
I'm not going to say it's not.
Because you can't prove a negative.
Can't
You
prove a negative. Yeah, and like you said, how self-centered would we be to be like, no, we're the only thing out there?
Well, I'll talk about that in the theology part of this. Yes or no, Caleb? I'm holding a gun to your head right now. Yes or no? Aliens exist.
I'm gonna say no because I think it brings up lots of weird theological questions in my mind that I can't immediately just resolve, which doesn't make it a hard no. But right now, I'm a no until yes.
I know this isn't going to be our topic for the day, so I'm not gonna really kick y'all into the deep end of this. But because you said it brings up some theological questions, let's talk about that real quick. Let's say there was alien life. Let's say there's aliens living in the mystery space hut right here on the moon, right? We're gonna find like a little alien farmer, and he's gonna come out and be like, "What y'all doing on my lawn?"
Yeah.
You know. And so, all right, let's just say there's extraterrestrial life that is humanoid, right? Let's just as closely as our brains can think of, like it's got the same level of intelligence, capability, all the function.
Little green man. Little green man with the big balloon head with the big eyes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever you create in your head. Here's the deal. If I've settled on the point of this, like theologically, all right, at least as it what it means for our salvation and what God has done for us through Christ, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what's out there because the story of Jesus is our story. I believe that if there were aliens out there, and we brought up the question of like, well, what about Jesus? What does Jesus mean for them? What does that mean?
That's the question I've got.
And I think it doesn't mean anything for them.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
Because Jesus came to earth for us, to be with us, to be like us. Now, God may have done. Listen, all right, this is going to get way off the rails, all right. But the biblical story is our story with God. It's a story of it's His love letter to us, the human race. special creation as according to what the Bible tells us about ourselves. I'm not opposed to the idea. Listen, this is gonna like at first you're gonna be like, this is heretical, and I'm gonna say, think about it, because it's not. All right, because God can do whatever God wants to do. There may be God dealing with the sin of another race out there in the universe in its own way. That's not the same as what He dealt with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see that, right? Because our story is very, very set, right? It's Jesus, God's one and only Son, came to earth to deal with our sin, and from creation all the way until God comes back. I'm interested in what the end times resolution is. Like when you get all the way to God in the new world, living with His creation that He loved and redeemed to Himself. What does that do to those alien species that God may also be redeeming?
Right.
Are they there with us, or they have their own new world? Is God in two places? Is there a different, it brings in lots of
I think those are the
deity
wrong questions. I think it
questions.
really doesn't matter. I think that's us trying to put ourselves at the center of the story, where God is the center of the story. And we are just one of the rotating things rotating around Him in the solar system. Now, do I think that we are special in God's eyes? I do. Absolutely do. I think that what Jesus did for us was specific to us 100%. Regardless of what life forms are out there, I think that if there is life out there, it's not like us, right? I think it's more like we would find a planet inhabited by, some alien creatures, alien deer running around or
Alien
whatever, maybe, hey, this is a whole different thing.
Can't wait to hear what this is.
I'll tell you what this hut might be. All right. This is just, I heard a theory the other day on another podcast. All right. I heard a theory that, all right, so when, the asteroid that supposedly took out the dinosaurs, right, impacted the Earth so hard and launched stuff so far out that some, listen to me, some dinosaurs and artifacts from Earth, maybe whatever, was launched so far out it broke through our atmosphere and landed on the moon, right? So there's a theory out there. There's a theory out there that you would potentially find dinosaur fossils on the moon.
That's interesting. I thought you were going to say that a hut got launched
That
in
was my
entirety
thought.
and landed upright.
Somebody's hut is on the
Yeah, somebody's
on
hut
the
with like their
moon.
belongings.
Like,
There's like a
how-
little straw mat
The hut is
down there.
100% going to be
How did
alien.
this Mesopotamic hut get on the moon?
How they developed space travel back then. There was like stone weapons and
Yeah.
They were just waiting for the right asteroid. They were
Yeah.
on the opposite end of the Earth when the asteroid hit. It catapulted them
Man,
off.
that poor guy who just got launched. Like, he's still floating out there. Something
Yeah.
just going.
I'm just saying, interesting theory,
Yeah.
to say the least. But I cannot wait until they get a little closer to this thing and like really look at it. Did y'all see the monoliths that like showed up in random places on Earth? All right. Turns out they were planted by people, right? It was like almost like a gorilla art thing, right? Not gorilla like the monkey gorilla, but like gorilla like, from an unknown source, right? And it's like this monolith, which is just this huge towering rectangular thing, and people were like in awe of it, and then it was gone one day. And they were like, where did it go? Where did it come from? Turns out they
moon.
found like tracks of people that were in and out with it. Then it shows up somewhere else across the world. It was this whole thing. But stirred up this talk about aliens for a little while.
But now it's on the moon.
But now it's on the moon, man. And like, there's no just random teenagers taking things to the moon.
No.
Like, this is here. This is going to be interesting. Mark my words. This will be an interesting find. Good job, Chinese.
Mark this down. We got to revisit next week.
We'll
see what
revisit-
happened. Because
yeah.
we'll know.
Because I need them to roll up on it.
As-
You said 260 feet?
260 feet, something like 80 meters. Something
That's like
that.
nothing.
Well,
like,
these rovers move
roll
super slow.
on.
They move super slow. All right.
They got to go to bed every night when the sun goes away and it's on the dark side. So there's like.
Yeah, it's solar power too, so you got to wait and like charge up all that. So I'll bring an update to the
Episode
to the
40. Mark it.
mystery
yeah,
hut.
in 6 months when the rover makes it.
I will bring I will absolutely bring an update as soon as I see one. Trust me on that. That'll be my slice for as long as it's a thing.
You won't be the sports guy. You're going to be the alien hut guy.
Listen, hey, I can talk aliens. I can talk Bigfoot all day too.
Man, when you went for a second, you're like, yeah, it's like some kind of alien deer thing. So let me tell you what this hut is. It's a duck blind, and there's duck aliens on the moon. And I was like, here we go. We're back at hunting.
Listen, hey, listen. Let me just tell you, there's no aliens on the moon. Just it's not habitable. Just putting that out there. All right, I've already decided, claimed it. Unless there's some sort of underwater, or not underwater, under the surface kind of thing.
Troll people, troll aliens.
Troll people. You know, I don't know. Something. But who knows? Who knows what the space hut is? Oh, man, we could do a whole alien thing. I could bring you guys. I could blow your mind, Linda, with alien talk.
I want to see you talk with Dennis about this. I want to see what he thinks.
We should get him on
Dennis
here.
has some thoughts, but
I'm
I bet
sure
they're
he does.
not. I bet they're not all that interesting. I bet he's like,
Oof.
probably not.
Slam on Dennis.
Not slam on Dennis.
I'm just kidding. I'm just joking.
He's an engineer. He's going to see things as white or black.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
And he's wildly educated on this.
get me like
That'd be fun.
Give me a theoretical scientist, and then we'll talk. Or
Dennis.
Joe Rogan.
Yeah, Joe. Yeah, there you go. Dennis's theoretical friend, and Joe Rogan, and you talk aliens for a week.
That'd be a long
something.
podcast. Long podcast. Yeah. I've changed my mind on Bigfoot. I used to be a Bigfoot guy. Changed my mind on Bigfoot, but
You don't like him anymore?
I thought at one time I thought it was a possibility. I just don't see it anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a Bigfooter.
I think we have seen some signs of alien life. I'm just saying. I think we've seen it, but there's no proof. We haven't had enough evidence to prove it. So that was my slide. That's what entertains me. That's what fires me up. Is like if I'm not talking about Jesus, like you talk to me about aliens, like I'm like all about it. Just like Linda and Brittany. So
That's all I've got for Brittany.
we'll keep updating on Brittany too. We'll give updates on Brittany's life at some point. Is like, did she eat a corn dog at a festival?
I bet she did. Look, if she's traveling abroad, anything could happen.
Anything could happen. I hope Brittany has a good story. That's what I really hope, that Brittany's story finishes well.
I do too.
Because she had some rough days in the early 2000s. Most of our listeners are teenagers now, so they weren't teenagers when we were teenagers.
Yeah, they don't even care about Brittany.
And I don't know if they care about Brittany or not, but take heed of Brittany's life, because she had the shaving head situation happen, and we thought this is the end of Brittany, and she's back.
Here she comes.
She's back, sort of. She's back using the potty. All right,
Anyway,
Linda. We have another article.
we do. Look, I was like rapid firing stuff you this week. Like now that we're kind of on the same page of what this podcast is, you're like, you got a lot to talk about for somebody who didn't know what to talk about.
And this is, it's been, the ideas have been rolling. Go ahead and bring us the premise of this article.
Okay.
And just open it up for us and go ahead and give me like your first initial like thoughts on this.
My first initial thought. Okay. So Friday. This is Friday evening. I go over to my grandfather's house. My grandpa's about to be 92. And I go to his house to get something, and he's watching the news. And he says, "Did you see the news story about Joel Osteen's church?" I said, No, Grandpa, I did not. So Joel Osteen has this church in Houston. He said a plumber was working at the church and pulled a toilet, and envelopes of cash fell out of the wall. I was like, they didn't.
I mean,
But they did. So this plumber, he was working on the church in early November, and he pulls this toilet. 500 envelopes fall out of the wall with various amounts of cash and checks.
500
envelopes like
of cash.
Yes.
Cash money.
Just out. He's working on this toilet. So
This is stuff that happens in like movies.
Yes. Like this is a great premise for a movie. And so he gets the house supervisor, like our Mark Cooper, and he tells him about this, and turns it over. So now this plumber is on a radio show in Houston, and he's retelling this story. Well, then the church, Lakewood Church, comes out and says, yes, this did happen. And that's the last we've heard of it. I'm like, no, I need more. But then on down, like, it's still very mysterious because in 2014, $600,000 went missing from the church safe.
Right.
Which I got questions about this church safe.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah, and
like, is this the same money
they never
that went
found
missing?
They never found it. No arrests were made. $600,000. They're like,
Listen, $600,000 is not a drop in the bucket.
No.
Like,
well, we were talking last night. We're like, why is there $600,000? Why do they have this on hand? It's like, is that the offering for the week? Is it their petty cash? Like, what is this?
well, and we can break that down in just a second because I know a little bit more than your average Joe on that, but
On church stuff.
either way, that's a load of money to just vanish.
Yeah.
And apparently well, I don't know. Is it all right? Percentage wise, how confident are you that this is the same money that went missing from the safe?
Oh, I am 99% confident that this is the same. And I'll tell you my theory why.
Okay.
I don't, because they have not come out and said how much money was behind the wall.
Right.
I think someone has been filtering in and filtering out behind this toilet.
Okay.
Like that $600,000 went somewhere behind this wall, and somebody is like every now and again
Pulling a little,
coming and getting a little
stuffing
something.
Okay. Yeah, just enough to where maybe it wasn't noticed.
They're not
quite
noticing.
so much.
Yeah.
Well, hold on, time out then. Then how confident can we be that it's the same money? Because that all went missing at a time.
Behind the wall.
Right, but you're saying, all right, so it was a little bit after a little bit.
No, I guess they're taking it out a little bit. Like
you
giant
mean
sum
all right?
was
They
taken.
shoved it all in,
They
and now
shoved
they're
it in
like,
the wall.
I need a little grocery money, so I'm gonna go
But yeah,
snag
it's
some of my
like,
bathroom money.
They're bad because you can't. Oh, suspiciously,
What if
600.
Britney goes and uses this potty?
This is the gas station. That's where it's all
This
coming
is
together.
the
And Brittany's an alien. No, I'm just-
Well, because they said the plumber gets called in for like a loose toilet. Wonder why that toilet's loose? Because
Somebody's been jiggling it.
back behind
Yeah.
it said pulls it out, insulation and cash dollars
I want to
falls
see
out of
this
the wall.
toilet. I want to see this toilet. I want to see what it looks like. Like, is it one of those? Is it an old school toilet with the what do you call the part that's above the toilet?
Tank.
The tank. Does it have a tank? Is it just one of these kind of like we have here at the church that are just like in the wall? Like all it is the seat part. I assume they have probably the nicest toilets that there is because
The nicest that Church Supplies Plus
the
gives.
nicest toilets money can buy because they can obviously afford it. I'm full of curiosity about
I am
this.
too. It's like and this is what the media does. They give us what they want us to know.
I know.
Like, give me the rest.
Well, all right. So let's go ahead and break this because I think honestly this is sort of a. It looks like it could be just a silly surface level article, but it leads to so many other questions. Like just the sheer amount of money
Yes.
that I don't know how much investigation happened over this $600,000. I would assume that authorities came in and they said, we're looking for this money, never found it, never thought to check the bathrooms, never thought to rip out the walls. So obviously that's not really the first place you're going to go. It's an inside job, obviously. Clearly an inside job. So there's that whole tangent we can go on.
Yeah.
You know, who's the secret mole in Lakewood Church? Or is it Joel himself?
Well, and that was something they're like, if Joel knows about this, it's the end.
Well,
Maybe.
I mean, the church readily said, yep, 600,000 is gone and we don't know what happened to it. You got to wonder, when did it say the money went missing?
2014.
2014. So 7 years ago. And like 7 years later, here we are with just envelopes of cash falling out of the wall. I wish they would have said how much money was
was,
behind the toilet.
Yeah.
It said of the 600, you got 200,000 in cash, and
Aha.
400,000 in checks.
Oh, okay.
So
All
they're
right.
dated. So
Yeah.
that links you back to the date,
To 2014.
2014. So I think it's pretty confident that it's probably the same money.
Boom.
Well, that
So why though?
why? Because somebody
how
was
did-
like, "This church is rich."
Do you think somebody tried to steal it and ended up just dumping it there? You think that was how it all? Like, why there? How did you know?
Okay,
There's
so if you see me walking down the hallway with 500 envelopes, somebody's going to say, "Hey, Linda, where are you going with all
all right,
that?"
so let's take a
good point.
glimpse into this because, all right, I don't know how Lakewood does their thing, but this is where we're going with this because you've got Joel Osteen, who is probably top 3 most well-known pastors in the United States of America, maybe the world. All right. Because he's not only known in the Christian world, he's known everywhere. And he's got books that are everywhere. And you've got him and a couple of other guys, and for good or for bad, Joel is very well known, famous in some words, infamous in others, in some circles. I don't know, so in his church, I don't know how it works, but I do know that you have guys like, all right, so Benny Hinn was a big prosperity, anyway, we can go, I'm not going to go into his theology and all that kind of stuff, but his church was one of these ultra mega churches, all right? And his ministry was global. And so I know that churches like his, and I have a friend who has someone in his church that was like her parents were Benny Hinn's right hand man and woman. Like they were so super involved. And he's like, all right, so how it kind of works with they've got so much money coming in on a Sunday or after a certain ministry event. So much money. They have these counting rooms and it looks like a casino from Las Vegas. It's all this money changing hands and all this kind of stuff. And it's just barrels of money. So I'm assuming that a church the size of Lakewood probably has something similar going on. You've got to get money counting down to an art. And it's a super tight, it's almost like what you see in the movies, with a casino or one of these big mafia type rooms where all the money's being counted and they're putting it into the different packaging things that they have.
Because they average over 50,000 people a week.
Right. I mean, that's, you think most of them are giving some money to the church. So that's a ridiculous, they'll make 600,000 in a weekend.
So I said,
right?
was that the offering from
That's
today's
just
service?
I'm assuming that in that safe, that was a piece of the, I'm not saying that's even the entire offering. That's 600. Think about this. $600,000 was probably almost a negligible amount of money that they thought they could get away with and not even be noticed for a while.
Which is astonishing.
That's astonishing. All right. $600,000. Wow. So here's the deal. I'm not saying, all right, we wanted to kind of take this into the trajectory of celebrity pastors and mega churches and the money surrounding ministry. Okay. Now, it took us a minute to get here, but think about Joel Osteen. All right. In our circle that we run in, most people in our circle don't hold Joel Osteen theologically very high. Okay. There's reasons for that. Joel Osteen probably makes some of the far out there guys look like, it makes Joel look pretty conservative, okay, in his theology. However, he has said some things that I've been like, ooh, I wish he wouldn't have said that. But because he has said certain things, it's elevated him to uber celebrity status. So I want to kick this out here for us for our conversation, Linda. regardless of whether it's Joel Osteen or Louis Giglio or Matt Chandler or Francis Chan, whom a lot of people love, how do you feel about pastors being popularized to celebrity status? Or is it even a thing we should even have a problem with or talk about?
So this is, you had told me about a podcast,
Yes.
the Rise and Fall of Marcel. And
Oh, yeah.
I'm like,
I thought you meant figuring it out.
no, like, so I'm, yeah. So I'm into Rise and Fall of Marcel.
Yeah.
And one of the episodes they were talking about the problem with elevating these pastors to this celebrity status is you get like the sun rises and sets with these pastors.
Yeah.
And so you get kind of this blind followership
Uh-huh.
that, and the yes men, and the pastor does something and everybody just goes along with it. Mm-hmm. So that's my problem with it, is that you have these pastors, and that's all well and good if their theology is sound and they're preaching the Bible. It's when something goes off the rails
Yeah.
that they say something, or they're leading their church in a direction that's not, and then you have this mass following.
Let me throw this out there. This is really interesting. Or in my mind. And we're coming at this. You're not a pastor.
I'm not a pastor.
I'm a pastor.
Yeah.
Caleb's not a pastor. He's semi. All right. He's the, I don't know. We've called him a pastor from time to time.
The camera pastor. That's what I like to
The
call him.
online campus pastor. Take these two personas, okay? So let me talk a little bit about Mars Hill. If you're not familiar with Mars Hill, and if you're one of our students who listen to this podcast, you're probably not, because they went away before you. I don't know if before you were born, but when you were a teeny tiny baby, Mars Hill went away. Mars Hill was one of the first, and Mark Driscoll was the pastor of Mars Hill, and it was one of the first examples of mega church with satellite campuses everywhere, and they streamed Mark Driscoll. Okay, he was one of the Saddleback Church, which is mentioned in the podcast. There's a few. There's a handful of them that went to prominence at this time. Mark Driscoll and Joel Osteen, two major names in the Christian world. One, whom a lot of solid Christians really disagree with because of his theology. One being Mark Driscoll. A lot of solid Christians loved his preaching, loved it. Now, he was abrasive in his personality, and that came out in his preaching, but like loved his theology. He went crashing down. Joel was around when Mark Driscoll was around. Like these guys were both ministers at the same time. Joel's still here. All right. What does that have to say about? I don't know if that has anything to say about anything. But both celebrity pastors, one went crashing down, crashed and burned, and now has a podcast about how badly he crashed and burned. And then you've got one that, as far as bad media attention, really doesn't get touched. What does that say? I don't know.
Because Mark Driscoll was very critical of these mega church pastors initially. And like
as he became a
megachurch pastor, and that their messages were soft and ear tickling, but then he becomes this megachurch pastor, and his messages were not soft.
No,
at all.
Not at all. Have you heard Mark Driscoll preach? Besides what's in that podcast,
little bit.
Caleb, are you familiar with Mark Driscoll?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he got really popular. He's using like super strong language that even non-Christians are going to find offensive in his sermons in order to make points. I mean, he's pretty direct.
Yeah,
he's pretty direct.
Uber masculine.
Yes,
uber masculine, and just like I said, abrasive, and to get his point across, he would offend you on purpose.
Yes.
So there's that, and then you have Joel Osteen, who's it couldn't be more opposite end of that spectrum. Who wants you to just smile and love yourself and love Jesus if you have room for that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, is there an inherent problem with celebrity status for a pastor?
I don't think there's an inherent problem.
Okay.
Because like let's look at Billy Graham, who
Good point.
I mean he's known worldwide, but Billy Graham was clean though, like, and very transparent, and
Yep.
there was nothing like you never heard of a scandal with Billy Graham.
You've just pinpointed, I think, the key issue. A lot of these guys, even before they're ever celebrity status, put around themselves this fence of accountability.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like Billy Graham had the classic Billy Graham rule. He wouldn't ride an elevator with a woman, like just a woman. It would be like him and he'd always bring a guy with him.
Mm-hmm.
And so he had a team of people, and he was never alone. And so so he wanted to avoid any sort of misconduct there, real or perceived, right? Because anybody can really say anything about
perception is reality.
Yeah, and so I think what you got, and what comes out in that podcast, I don't know if you've gotten to it yet, but what comes out in the Rise and Fall of Mars Hill is Mark Driscoll was a guy who, if you said no or tried to keep him accountable, he'd just fire you. Mm-hmm. Whether you were staff, elder, whatever. Like, that was part of the issue, was he became this guy who, if you pushed back against him, you're gone. You're gone. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. There was no discussion. There was no conversation. You were out. And so, he was proud to fire people.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that was a big deal. It was like he would try to ruin your life, like fire you. So I would say you see it done really well. Guys who are surrounded by people who love them enough to keep them accountable. Mm-hmm. I think you've got that in. I think there's just a lot of pastors doing it really well. There are some that we've seen fall, and so at the same time, how should we feel when we see that happen, Linda? Like, so this is something that our students see all the time, because it seems like every couple months there's like a major pastor that has a moral failure, right? Mark Driscoll was a long time ago, but ever since we've seen Carl Lentz from Hillsong, New York, guys like that who have really made some really bad decisions, and it's super public because they're super popular, and the crash and burn honestly rocks not only their church, but it has shockwaves throughout the U.S., especially because we fall in love with these celebrity pastors and have them on a pedestal, which, in my opinion, as a pastor should never seek any type of pedestal. So that's a whole different thing. So when we're listening to a Mars Hill podcast, or we see, how should we react when we see a pastor like fall like that?
So I think
What's your initial reaction, and talk about that?
My initial reaction is, because you hear them of something that they fall, and you want to hear what happened, and your first is like, especially if you've kind of like listened to them and you kind of rub a little bit.
If you disagree with them, then when they fall, like, your temptation is, got them.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and that's because Mars Hill, super abrasive. I know a lot of people weren't into that. Well, like Ravi Zacharias, who he was like a very genteel.
There's a huge point right here.
Yes, and you see him fall, and a lot of people are like, no, it couldn't be, and so it's like, what's the difference? And
right,
you almost want to see those that are out there and abrasive and arrogant, and you kind of wait for their downfall. But
the temptation is to celebrate it in a way.
Is.
And it's like,
it is, but then at the same time, it's like Christianity, especially in America, is under such a microscope that humans can't be humans.
Well, that was one point I was going to make is, because someone is a pastor, it doesn't mean they're not capable of sin.
Correct.
Right. It might look different, or whatever, but at the same time, we have an enemy that if the enemy can make an example out of a major pastor, like, believe you me that that's going to happen. Like, Satan would love nothing more than to hurt the church by a major pastor having a failure, like a Ravi Zacharias. Like, that was a mega punch
Yeah.
to the church.
Yeah, because whether we do it or not, you put these pastors up on the pedestal, like, oh, they're reading the Bible, they're studying it, and they're leading this flock.
Yeah.
And it leaves no room for error. Well, guess what, folks? Like, we're still human, and we have our sin nature that we fight against daily, and no one is righteous, not one.
Yeah.
And pastors are the same way.
Yeah, and there's a real temptation, and you can tell me as a non-pastor your thoughts toward pastors. I would love to hear. But as a pastor, like, platform is never something that I've sought for, but I understand it as a tool. So it's like, I've got a message that I want to bring, that God has laid on my heart to bring. And if he gives me a platform of 200 or 2 million, like, the message needs to not change. Like, there's still a central message that people need to hear, and it's the truth of God's word, the gospel. I can remember being like younger, like a teenager, and we would do this thing at our church where the youth guys would be the ushers for the tithes and offerings. Like, we would pass a plate, literally a plate, around and like collect the tithes. But one of us always had to pray, like, in front of the church or whatever. And I was always the elected one because, there was just when I was 14, I was called into ministry. From that point forward, I had to pray at every meal and everything that ever happened. Like, I was the praying guy. And so they'd always put me in front of the church to pray for the offerings and all that kind of stuff. And I can remember there were some old ladies in our church that it got to be where every Sunday after I prayed, they would just rant and rave about how good I prayed. Like, you pray so good. Like, it got to be this weird thing. And it was like, I could sense something didn't sit well with me, that they were bragging on the way I prayed. I was like, just pray along with me, just agree, but don't like make a big deal. They were making way too big a deal about how I prayed. So I quit. Like, I quit being an usher. I quit praying. I quit all that. Like, now looking back, I say, well, there wasn't really a pride issue in me. If they like the way I prayed, that's fine. I mean, but I've understood a little more how to use a platform now, but there are absolutely some abuses that happen. But I would say that a pastor that's really in ministry and pastoring with the right sense of calling isn't looking for that platform. Do you feel like, as a non-pastor, right, as you're just a church-going person?
I'm just a person.
Do you tend to put pastors on a platform, and why do we do that?
Yes and no. Like, the older I get, and now, like, working in the, like, closer with the pastors,
you get to see how the sausage is made.
I get to see it now. And even before, it's like, okay, these people are human too.
Yeah.
But on a platform, like, theologically and knowledge-wise, yes, like, you guys outrank me big time. Like, and I would go to you for, like, if I had a question, a question or something, like with our small group that we teach and stuff, like, hey, let me run this by, like, I need some resources, help me out with this. And I think it would be like, if something came out and you were involved in some kind of scandal, like you're hiding money behind the toilet or something like that.
Wish.
It would, I think it would surprise me. I'd be like, he is the youth pastor, like, and he is stealing from the church. Like, you are ordained by God to deliver his message, and here you are doing something shady.
Yeah. Well, I think because of the church in America, we see pastors, and because of this, have you ever heard of preachers in sneakers?
Yes.
Okay, Caleb, you familiar with preachers in sneakers? Okay. So we have this, if you're not familiar, it started as an Instagram account. It's a whole movement now, really, I guess. I don't know. It started as an Instagram account that was like calling out pastors in a lot of ways for the way they dress. Like some of them spending, it seems like they were spending tons of money on sneakers, shoes in general, and then it became full outfits, and it's all a whole thing. Like we're talking like pastors wearing like Gucci belts and Jordans that you can't get unless you pay thousands of dollars for them and that kind of thing. So we get this like sort of view of some pastors as like, man, they are rolling in the dough, and so then it's like wealth. I had a small group meeting, and one of the guys in the small group was like, well, we associate wealth and celebrity status; those sort of are linked together, and so these pastors that seem wealthy are also elevated to this celebrity status in a lot of ways. So I think we elevate pastors because we're American and like we have certain things that we like love about like celebrities.
We love to create celebrities.
Yeah, we
love
love to like have the person that we can associate with like the things that we love about life or whatever, or you find your favorite pastor, in which we can go into like 1 Corinthians and how that's a problem in and of itself. But all that to say, like, we need to figure out how to live like in the middle of like when we see a pastor fall, which happens, and you're going to see, because there are so many, and social media is so widespread, and you can follow tons of pastors, even if they're not uber celebrities like Joel Osteen. You can follow some popular pastors that have really big churches. And if they ever fail, you're going to know about it. And it's going to be like all over your news feed for a little while. So we need to figure out how to live in the wake of the fact that it happens. To pray for your pastors, because I can say like Satan wants to make an example out of your pastors, because any foothold he can get, he will blow it up huge. I think there. Speaking of the preachers and sneakers, like there's a whole thing. Like some of these pastors have come out and said like this was a gift. Like I know somebody who knows it. Like I know a guy who runs the Gucci store, and he just gave me this belt one day, or whatever. I'm not saying they're lying.
Perception is reality, though.
Perception is reality, I guess. And so, let's say that. Do you feel any sort of way, negatively or positively, about a pastor wearing like some fine clothes? Or we can even extend that, having a super nice house or having a really nice car, whatever that looks like. I do feel a certain way, because it's like, okay, so... Is that way positive or negative?
It is... It's a little bit negative.
Okay.
Because let's say, Joel Osteen and his... and all of his drip. And it's like, well, why is he taking that much money for himself? Like, why is this not going to the Lord's work? But then again, why did we put so much money into our house?
Yeah.
And it does make me feel a sort of way, but it's very hypocritical. All
right. Like, Caleb, thoughts? Hadn't heard from you in a second.
Yeah, I'm in my role here. I amplify what you guys are doing, keep the conversation going. So I'm sitting back listening. I tend to be pretty critical of pastors in general, like hypercritical. I think if you take on that stewardship and that ordination from God, then you are held to a higher level. And I know it's a heavier burden, and the more attacks come when you take that on. But with that comes the responsibility to perform the way you're supposed to, which can only happen through God empowering you through His Spirit and all that. So
Holy Spirit, all that.
All that, all the easy stuff, right? I don't have any problem just on the face of pastors dressing super nice or super poorly, or having a nice house or not, driving a nice car or not. I think that all those things are just manifestations of intent and purpose from the pastor. So those are reflections of what could be a problem, but it also doesn't have to be a problem.
Right.
So like, who know, I know a few pastors who are very wealthy, and they're not wealthy from the church. They're wealthy from everything else that they do in their life, and they've got other things that God's put them in.
Yeah.
And they drive nice cars, and they don't really have to worry about that to take care of their family. They also give away a ton of money that you don't usually hear about or see. I don't think there's anything just wrong with having money, right? Because this whole thing is all about stewardship.
Yeah, because all right. So for one example, there was a hugely popular pastor that for a long time, like I loved, right? Recently, not so much, but I'm not going to name him. But this guy who is I'm talking about one of the mega churches here in the U.S. He bought some land, built a $1 million house on this land, all this kind of stuff. It might have been a multi-million-dollar. I think it was $1 million house or whatever. But he caught so much flack from the Christian world because he pretty much bought like 50 acres and planted this huge house right in the middle of it. Okay. I can guarantee, and he's often on Preachers and Sneakers. I'll just put that out there. He's often on Preachers and Sneakers. That being said, I felt so bad for him that he was catching flack for this building this house and having this land, because I was like, if I had the money, I would buy a ton of acreage and plant a house right in the middle of it too. Like, I just like privacy like that. And I like not feeling like I'm in the middle of just like a little cramped neighborhood. I just love it. But I can't afford that right now. So I am where I am. And so anyway, all that to say, people are like, well, he could have he could have built like a $200,000 house instead of $1 million house. I'm like, that's his prerogative. If he is stewarding his money in a responsible, accountable, spiritual way, I say build whatever house you can afford. Right.
That's what I was saying. Like,
yeah,
I give my 10 and beyond to the church.
Yeah.
I'm packing some in savings. Here we are with the rest of it.
Yeah. And can I say this? You're the fact that you said, all right, so you feel a little bit negatively when you see a pastor roll up and whatever. I think that's a predominantly white attitude. And I'm not trying to say anything. But here's the deal. Here's what I know about like the black church. Mm-hmm. They want their pastor dressed to the nines. Mm-hmm. They want, this is traditional, right? This is a traditional black church experience. Their pastor's the nicest dressed. He's rolling up in the nicest car. His family is treated special in every way. Now, whether or not that's right or wrong, right? Mm-hmm. I'm saying the white experience is a little bit different than that. In my experience in church, we want to keep the pastor humble. So we don't pay him very much. We'll let him roll in a little, a beater car, whatever. Mm-hmm. We want his wife serving on every committee, doing everything and all that kind of stuff. It's a whole different type of experience. Mm-hmm. And what's funny is you see way more white pastors elevated to the part of celebrity than you do black pastors. They're just held to a high standard on everything within their church context. And this may be just America's systemic race problem, right? I don't know. Maybe we're going back to that. But all I'm saying is I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with celebrity status or using whatever you're getting paid, whatever the church decides to pay you, because usually a pastor's not saying, hey, you're going to pay me this much. There's a group of elders, there's a congregation, somebody's saying, hey, we're going to pay the pastor. But I will say this, if we don't surround, and this is how we figure out how to live in the wake of all this pastor stuff. The pastors should be a model and an example to the rest of us as Christians. When we see one fail, and this is why the Mars Hill podcast, I look at it as a warning as a pastor. I see a lot of this like that. As Christians, we need to figure out how to surround ourselves with people that don't just tell us yes or tell us what we want to hear all the time. We need to surround ourselves with people that will love us enough to say no and keep us accountable when they see us start down the wrong path, right? it's like Jude. The book of Jude tells us, snatch one another out of the fire, right? By doing that, you'll save a whole ton of souls. Because who knows if Caleb starts to fail and I don't snatch him out of that, like who's he going to take down with him, So I think there's a lot of wisdom there.
Yeah, and that's not just pastors, but like in our community.
Yeah.
Elevate, just taking care of each other.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is a paradigm for the rest of us to figure out how do we live in the midst of like, all right, sin is going to always be an issue for pastors and non-pastors. So how do we steward what we have well, and how do we surround ourselves with the right kind of people?
And I mean, it brings out that compassion in us, because when I fall or do something stupid or whatever, I don't want people laughing and pointing and making
right. Yeah,
that
same
thing.
circle of people. They don't need to be the ones that say, "I told you so."
Yeah, like I need somebody to come alongside me.
Yeah,
and that's what we do in the body. We build each other back up.
100%. And I think that's really ultimately what we take from these high status pastors, whether they're doing great or whether they fall. We take it as an example and a model, just like you would look at a Paul or a Peter or someone, one of the apostles. It's like they're not perfect examples. They're not Jesus, but their lives tell us a story. Their lives tell us how, all right, so we can use that as an example for how we're living and what to do and what not to do. And I think our circle of people is where it starts. So any final thoughts on that?
I don't think so.
Good talk. I like thinking through the whole celebrity pastor thing. A lot of people would push back and say no pastor should ever be a celebrity. And I think the good pastors never ask for that, but if they're made into a popularized model, then they need to be extra careful how they use that platform. And I think a lot of them are. We just hear about the ones that aren't.
But
Caleb?
I think what happens though, when you do see a fall of a pastor, we often don't see the repentance and reconciliation on the other side though.
Sometimes that never happens.
Yeah. And what does that say though?
Oh, tons
Like,
that we don't have time to talk about. Yeah.
But yeah, like how does that, I think when we see it more like on the layperson level, I suppose, like somebody does something stupid, then you see like a true repentance. And what does that say for the message of the gospel? Like that speaks volumes.
Yeah. There are some that say, well, okay, if I crashed and burned at this church, I'm just going to go start another church. So there's a whole thing. Caleb, any final thoughts? We're going to wrap it up here, but that's episode 2 of Figuring It Out. Surround yourself with the right people, love one another, and keep each other accountable. We'll see you next time.